Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Satwanti Kapoor from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today I shall be speaking on the module Methods of Assessing Abnormal Growth from the paper Applied Anthropology. The learning objectives of this module are to understand what is growth, to understand what is abnormal growth, to understand what causes short stature, to understand about growth velocity, metabolic disorders, hormonal disorders. First of all, we'll discuss about growth and development. Now, growth is the progressive increase in the size of a person or a part of a person. Development is the acquisition of various skills to perform specific functions. Growth and development go together but at different rates. The healthy state of a person can be assessed by his growth and development status. Measurements of growth, therefore, is very essential to know whether the growth is normal or abnormal. Failure to grow normally indicates symptoms of disease. Growth takes place when bones of the arm, leg, and back increase in size. This usually occurs before the ages 16 to 18 years. The bone age or maturation of the bones can be assessed by taking the x-rays of the hands or knee. There are many causes of abnormal growth. Some are temporary and merely variations of the normal pattern of growth. Abnormal growth may result due to genetic factors or may be associated with other physical problems. The proper health and growth of a child can only be maintained by regularly getting the child examined and measured. There are a number of conditions that may lead to decreased or increased growth rate or short or tall stature, which could be detected through growth monitoring. Conditions in which stature outside the normal range is often the only or most significant presenting feature are growth hormone deficiency and Turner syndrome (TS). Such conditions justify growth screening in childhood. Now I'll speak about uses of growth charts. A growth chart is used to compare a child's height and growth rate with those of others of the same age. A standard growth chart is the one in which the researchers take a large number of children of different ages and make a graph of their heights and weights. The most commonly used growth charts are from the National Center for Health Statistics (NCHS) and are age and gender specific. The height at the 50th percentile means the height at which half of the children of that age are taller and half are shorter. The 25th percentile means 75% of the children are taller at that age and 25% are shorter. The 75th percentile means that 75% will be shorter and 25% will be taller. As there is a lot of variation, and if children are between the 3rd and 97th percentile, but if they are growing at a normal rate, they will be regarded as normal. Some of the characteristics of growth charts are: an upward curve in the road to health is ideal, a flat and downward curve are not desirable. WHO charts blue for boys and pink for girls to identify children with growth deviations and diseases and conditions that manifest due to abnormal growth, evaluation of effectiveness of corrective measures and impact of a program of special intervention for improving the health of children. The ICMR, which is Indian Council of Medical Research, undertook a nationwide cross-sectional study during 1956 to 1965 to establish Indian reference charts. However, it is irrelevant now as they were based on lower socioeconomic class. The growth charts compiled by Agarwal et al. Were based on affluent urban children from all major zones of India measured during 1989 to 1991. However, this data is also old and irrelevant now. In 2010 to 2011, Khalidkar et al. Have published the growth charts on affluent children 5 to 18 years of age and have also compared the growth of 2 to 5-year-old Indian children with the new WHO growth charts. Normal growth is a sign of good health in children. Monitoring growth allows early detection of causes of poor growth. Early recognition of poor growth allows early intervention optimizing the possibility of achieving good health and a normal adult height. Short stature may result from hypothyroidism, psychosocial deprivation, and intrauterine growth retardation or other chronic diseases. Tall stature may be due to Marfan syndrome and Klinefelter syndrome or a sign of treatable endocrine disorders. Early detection of organic causes of abnormal growth is very important. When a child is born, the size is almost same in all, but postnatally every individual varies in size and shape. Established growth standards, that is established range of normal height and weights for different age groups, can be used to monitor growth of children. Mid-parent height. This calculation provides a target mean and range for the genetic potential of a child based upon the biological parents' heights. Single height measurement identifies children whose height is outside the normal range. In contrast, repeated height measurements over time allow for calculation of a growth rate or growth velocity and can be used to define abnormal growth in terms of a crossing of the height centiles, thereby identifying abnormality through the pattern of growth within the individual. Rogol et al. 2000. Growth velocity provides a superior measure because changes in actual height only become evident after altered growth rates have been sustained for a period of time. A normal child tends to follow a given centile line or pattern. Deviation in growth away from this percentile are difficult to detect over short intervals using the growth curves. This is one of the most important reasons for calculating the growth rate or growth velocity. Evaluating the growth velocity at each routine and acute illness visit provides the earliest identification of problems with growth. Growth velocity is normal if growth is maintained along an isobar line. When growth slows and crosses the height centile, even if still within the normal range on the growth chart, a pathological etiology is more likely. Growth declaration is defined as a growth velocity that is below 5th percentile for age and gender, or a height drop across 2 or more percentiles on the growth chart. When growth velocity is abnormally decreased, height measurement will progressively fall across isobars, sometimes termed falling off the curve. Conversely, acceleration of growth velocity results in crossing the upper isobar, but not all growth acceleration is beneficial. Exposure to abnormal sex steroid, whether from an exogenous or endogenous source, can lead to early accelerated growth, premature fusion of the epiphysis, and ultimately short adult stature. The growth of preterm children differ from that of children born at full term and is independent on their gestational age. The European Society of Pediatric Endocrinology (ESPE) classified the main cause of short stature into 3 groups: primary growth disorder, where the condition is intrinsic to the growth plates; secondary growth disorders, where the milieu of growth plate changes as a consequence of the conditions; and third, when there is no identifiable cause of short stature, idiopathic short stature (ISS) or growth failure of unknown etiology. Witt et al. 2007. Causes of short stature could be primary growth failure, clinically defined syndromes including Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, Noonan syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, and Silver-Russell syndrome. Small for gestational age or SGA with failure of catch-up growth, congenital bone dysplasia, for example, achondroplasia, hypochondroplasia. Now, secondary growth disorders, endocrine causes, growth hormone deficiency, either congenital or acquired. Hypothalamic pituitary region lesions such as craniopharyngioma or head trauma. Multiple pituitary deficiencies, Cushing syndrome. Hypothyroidism, consequences of precocious puberty, GH-IGF-I axis, IGF-I deficiency, ALS deficiency, IGF-I resistance, metabolic disorders, poorly controlled diabetes mellitus, disorders of lipid, carbohydrate, protein metabolism, for example, chronic renal inefficiency, Disorders in organ system and systemic disorders, for example, cardiac, pulmonary, cystic fibrosis, liver, intestinal, short bowel syndrome and celiac disease, renal, chronic anemia, juvenile arthritis. Psychosocial conditions such as emotional deprivation, anorexia nervosa, systemic or local glucocorticoid therapy. The treatment of childhood malignancy, for example, chemotherapy, total body irradiation, etc. Nutrition and systemic diseases. There are many diseases and disorders that can cause short stature and growth failure. Malnutrition in some parts of the world lead to abnormal growth. There are a number of intestinal disorders which may lead to poor absorption of food. Failure to absorb nutrients and energy from food then leads to growth failure. Children with these conditions may have complaints that involve the stomach or intestine. Treatment of these conditions often involves a special diet. Now, normal growth usually resumes after proper treatment is taken. Chronic diseases that may impair growth include diabetes, congenital heart disorders, sickle cell disease. Now, bone disorders. Several inherited bone diseases influence growth and maturation. In achondroplasia, a dominant inherited abnormality, the cartilage cells mature less rapidly than normal. This leads to short, long bones and skin of limb tends to hang in folds. Physical performance is not much affected. A recessive abnormality known as osteochondrodystrophy results in decreased growth of articular cartilage and consequently metaphysical development is delayed. Degenerative changes in joints, sclerosis may lead to restriction of movement. The underlying cause of most of these skeletal dysplasias are not known. Researches are being done to identify the genetic and biochemical mechanism. Intrauterine growth retardation. Some infants are small at birth as they are born earlier than usual time. Such babies are called premature and they are born preterm. Some infants are shorter and weigh less than they should be at birth. In other words, they had a chance to grow in the womb but did not reach the length and weight they should have for their gestational age. Length of the time in the womb. This failure to grow normally in the womb is called intrauterine growth retardation. A problem with the placenta, the organ in the mother's womb that supplies nutrients and oxygen to the baby, may result in such conditions. During pregnancy, German measles, a viral infection, may affect the placenta, causing intrauterine growth retardation. This condition cannot be identified in some cases. Such children will remain small throughout life, whereas some of them may reach normal size. Intrauterine growth retardation may result because of so many reasons. Researches are being done to see if growth hormone is effective in increasing the growth rate and adult height of these children. Growth and puberty. At the time of adolescence, a growth spurt normally occurs. Girls experience growth spurt about 2 years earlier than the boys. Rates of growth and changes during puberty vary from person to person. Parents' growth and puberty patterns often are passed on through their genes to their children. If one or both parents had a late puberty, then their children are more likely to reach puberty later and to experience a later growth spurt. This is also known as constitutional growth delay. Sex hormones. The increase in growth rate during puberty is marked by the increase in production of sex hormones, which is estrogen from ovaries in girls and testosterone from the testicles in boys. These hormones are responsible for skeletal growth and maturation. Disorders of pubertal development can affect a child's growth pattern and ultimate height. Disorders during puberty are usually grouped into two categories. One, precocious or premature puberty. Second, delayed or late puberty. Precocious puberty. Puberty is considered precocious early if Changes in sexual development manifest before age 8 for girls and before age 10 for boys. Although initially this causes these children to grow taller than others of the same age, their skeletons mature more rapidly, which results in stopping the growth at an early age. Therefore, precocious puberty, if left untreated, may lead to a decrease in child's ultimate height. There are many possible causes for precocious puberty, including brain tumor or genetic abnormality and other disorders of the central nervous system, and tumors of other conditions that cause the gonads or adrenal glands to overproduce sex hormone. In girls, however, the majority of cases of precocious puberty are idiopathic, which means the cause cannot be identified. Precocious puberty can be divided into two categories: central precocious puberty and peripheral precocious puberty. Now, central precocious puberty, also known as gonadotropin dependent precocious puberty, occurs when the abnormality is located in the brain. Central precocious puberty is the most common form of precocious puberty and affects many more girls than boys. The cause of central precocious puberty include brain tumor or infections. Now, delayed puberty. Delayed puberty occurs when the hormonal changes of puberty occurs later than occurring at normal range of age. Puberty is considered late if it has not begun by age 13 in girls or by age 15 in boys. Most children who experience delayed puberty are following the normal pattern called constitutional growth delay. Several disorders such as disorders of the hypothalamus, pituitary, ovaries and testicles can result in delaying puberty by interfering with the rise in the sex hormones during puberty period. Many chronic disorders of other body organs and systems such as intestine and lungs, as well as long-term medical treatments, also may cause delayed puberty. Children with delayed puberty go through an otherwise normal puberty just at a later age. This delay is due to the fact that he or she is maturing slowly than average, also known as constitutional delay of puberty. This condition often runs in the families. Improper nutrition due to long-term illness can delay puberty. Strenuous physical training, running or gymnastics may cause delayed puberty in girls. Now, genetic disorders. Genetic or syndromic causes of short stature are often diagnosed because of abnormalities found during clinical examination. One of such is Turner syndrome. Short stature in girls may be caused by genetic condition that affects the X chromosome. Chromosomes are small thread-like bodies in the nucleus of each cell. They contain the genetic material that determines the characteristics we inherit. Two of these chromosomes determine sexual development. The X and Y chromosome. Boys have one X and Y chromosome and girls have two X chromosomes. In girls with Turner syndrome, one of the X chromosome is misshapen or missing in many or all body cells. Because of this, affected girls are short and may have underdeveloped ovaries. Intelligence is normal. Marfan syndrome. Marfan syndrome is a hereditary condition affecting connective tissue and is associated with tall stature. People with Marfan syndrome have very long arms and legs. They have eye problems and differences in facial features. Other physical problems such as heart abnormalities also may be present. It is commonly believed that Abraham Lincoln had Marfan syndrome. Klinefelter syndrome is also one such example of abnormal tall stature. The figure here shows the growth curve for girls with Turner syndrome. The height centiles for girls with untreated Turner syndrome aged 1 to 20 years shows that the grey shaded area represents the 3rd to 97th centile for normal growth. Hormones and growth disorders. Growth is controlled by hormones, chemical messengers from various glands. One of the most important growth hormone is secreted by the pituitary gland. The gland looks like a peanut sitting at the base of the brain. Other hormones also are essential for growth. The thyroid gland in the neck secretes thyroxine, a hormone required for normal bone growth. Sex hormones are secreted from the ovaries. Pituitary hormones. The pituitary gland is attached by a stalk to the hypothalamus, an area of the brain that controls the functions of the pituitary. The anterior or front part of the pituitary gland secretes the following hormones that can affect growth. 1. Growth hormone to regulate bone growth. Thyroid stimulating hormone to control the production and secretion of thyroid hormones. Gonad stimulating hormone for development of the sex glands, which are called gonads, and secretion of sex hormones. Adrenal stimulating hormone to regulate the secretion of adrenal gland hormones. Too little growth hormone, hypopituitarism. Sometimes the pituitary gland does not make enough growth hormone, so child growth rate is slowed down. The deficiency may appear at any time during infancy or childhood. When doctors have ruled out other causes of growth failure, they may recommend special tests for growth hormones deficiency. Children with growth hormone deficiency are treated with daily injections of the hormone, often for a period of years. With yearly diagnosis and treatment, these children usually increase their rate of growth and may catch up to achieve average or near average height as adults. In pituitary dwarfism, caused by low amount of growth hormones, the person is short but has normal body proportions. This is different from other forms of dwarfism due to genetic skeletal dysplasia. In these cases, the person with dwarfism is short and the growth of the arm, leg, torso and head often is out of proportion. For example, the person's arms and leg may appear relatively smaller than the head or the torso. Too much growth hormones, hyperpituitarism. Two conditions arise from excessive amount of growth hormone in the body: acromegaly and gigantism. The cause usually is a tumor in the pituitary. Acromegaly, a condition caused by increased secretion of growth hormone after normal growth has been completed, occurs in adults. The condition is rare, occurring in 6 out of 1 lakh people. As the adult cannot grow taller, the excess growth hormone in acromegaly causes their bones to thicken as well as other structures and organs to grow larger. This occurs usually in middle ages. Gigantism occurs when excessive secretion of growth hormones occur in children before normal growth has stopped. This results in the overgrowth of long bones. The vertical growth in height is accompanied by growth in muscles and organs. The person becomes very tall with a large jaw, large face, large skull and very large hands and feet. Many health problems may be associated with gigantism, such as heart disease and vision problems. The picture illustrates a normal individual with that of a person suffering from gigantism. Let's summarize the module as: normal growth is a sign of good health. Monitoring for growth disturbances is fundamental to children's health care. Early detection and diagnosis of the causes of short stature allow management of underlying medical conditions, optimizing attainment of good health and normal adult height. Failure to grow is an important clinical condition for the general practitioners to recognize. Short stature should be identified, diagnosed and treated appropriately and without delay. Normal growth is a sign of good health, but ill children and adolescents often grow slowly, making monitoring of growth disturbance of critical importance in pediatric health care. The principal reason to study abnormal growth in infants and children is to identify conditions that may threaten good health and life. The most useful test in distinguishing the short normal child from one with a pathological condition are accurate height measurements over time and calculation of growth velocity. Most apparently, healthy children who are short but growing at a normal growth velocity are healthy. In contrast, a child whose growth velocity is declining, irrespective of their absolute height, deserves thorough evaluation. Prompt recognition of cause of short stature by measuring children early and often provides the best chance for a child to achieve an ideal health outcomes as well as the potential to reach an adult height within the normal population range. In light of our ability to diagnose remediable diseases using accurate growth assessment, the clinical significance of early recognition of short stature is clear. When doctors have ruled out other causes of growth failure, they may recommend special tests for growth hormones GH deficiency. Children with growth hormone deficiency are treated with daily injections of hormones, often for a period of years. With early diagnosis and treatment, these children usually increase their rate of growth and may reach up to achieving average or near average heights as adults. Thank you very much.